Hi ladies, I'm back again with the second card for the March club. We're going to be doing, this is called the tarnished foil technique. Now there's two different ways of doing this. You can take a piece of foil and emboss it and add embossing powder and then go over top of it with black ink. That's the hard way. The easy way is how we're doing it today. We're just using a piece of black cardstock and I've run it through with the Petal Burst embossing folder. And then we're going to add the embossing powders on top of it to make the tarnished foil. And then you don't have to go back and rub it over with black because you already got the black showing through. Okay, so here we go. So to do this technique, we're using three different foils. We're using copper, gold, and silver, and Versamark ink. So let's get the copper out. Get it ready. My heat gun's right here, so we'll be able to heat it up. Okay, so to do this, you just take your embossing or your Versamark ink and put ink in spots for the first, and you don't want to do it all because wherever you put the Versamark ink, that's where your embossing powder is going to stick. So you want to do it here and there so that you have room to put all three embossing powders. Now, if you get a line like this, which you will, unless you're a lot better than I am, just go back with your finger and kind of scruff it up a bit. If you like that look, go for it, because I have it quite a bit on this one because I didn't know about doing this until after I already made that. And I'm just flicking off the excess and having a look at it. So I'm going to put the lid back on my copper. Oh, it doesn't go everywhere. Okay, here comes the heat gun, and I'm really sorry, but it will be noisy. We're just going to heat this up. There it goes. There we are. So apparently I have a couple of edges, but that's okay. So the next step is to add gold embossing powder. So you do the same thing wherever you want the gold. You just add some Versamark ink, and you can go over top of where the copper is. Just make sure you leave room for the silver to go on. Okay, let's have a look, see what that looks like. Rough it up a bit on those edges. You could probably use a brush too if you didn't want to get embossing powder all over your fingers. Right, so that's way over there, so it doesn't get hit with the heat gun. Okay, I'm heating it up again. I'm hoping to fast forward these segments if I can figure out how to do that. Now I still have quite a bit of raw space left, and I don't want to put all of that into silver, so I'm just going to do a couple of more spots of gold. I like this technique because you can play with it. Just remember that less is better, and then you can always add more if you're not satisfied with the amount of coloring you did. And I think maybe I'll do just a tad right there. You also want to leave a little bit of the black showing through. Okay, let's rough this up a bit, because apparently there's stuff there. Okay, back to the heat gun. There we are. That's better. Alright, lid on the gold. Get the silver out. Now I'm just going to go over the rest of the spots that I want the silver to be in. A little bit there. A little bit of contouring. Comes the heat gun. There we are. So the silver just kind of lightens it up. So I'm just going to show you a couple of different ways of doing this. This one, you can see a lot more black in the background. I didn't push quite as hard with the Versamark ink pad. I kind of slid it more over the top of the embossing. This one, I did it a little bit deeper and got the embossing, or the Versamark, right down in between. So they both are fine, whichever way looks good for you. Okay, so while we're doing embossing, I'm just going to get the copper out and do the Celebrate while I'm working with it. So here's the card again. So Celebrate, you just want to put a little bit of Versamark on the bottom of the Celebrate and put it into the copper embossing powder. So I already cut it out. And we're going to use the Versamark ink and a dauber. Just load up the dauber and put it on the bottom as far down as you want. We've done this before in the last club with sponging on color and then sponging on Tombow, and then we put dazzling diamonds and glitter on it. So this is just a different variation of that. So I'm pushing it down into the copper embossing powder just so I make sure I get lots of powder adhering to my Celebrate. And I think I'm going to have to do that once more. I don't think I've got enough ink on there, so hang on. Now I'm using the copper powder, but you can use any powder, really. Whatever you have, whatever you coordinates with your art piece. So I'm just putting a little bit more Versamark ink on there so I can get a little bit more copper. And I just push it down into the embossing powder again. Ugh, embossing powder everywhere. That's a little bit better. Oops, my spoon back in. There we are. Oops, come back here. Okay, so for this one I used a dauber. For this one I used a sponge brayer, and it has a much more defined line across it. And after I did it, I decided I didn't really like it that way, but you can do it that way. I much prefer so that it's got like an ombre effect on there, so that's why I used the dauber. Okay, so one more little tidbit tip, and then we'll start assembling the cards. So I put 3 enamel dots on here, but we don't have copper ones. So I used a bronze Sharpie. It's bronze metallic Sharpie, and I dug out some enamel dots that I have lots of and just colored them with the Sharpie. And you have to go over it a couple of times. Stay. Okay. Apparently this one hasn't got a glue dot on it anymore. Make sure I've got good coverage on these. And then I'm just going to set them aside for a couple of seconds till they dry. So, hey, you have the card base. Make sure it's opening on the right way up. Now we're going to attach the copper strip to your art piece. So I'm just going to figure out which way I want it. No, I think this way. So I'm going to attach it to this edge by putting some adhesive right on the edge of the black cardstock here. And then getting the copper strip. And I made the copper strip a lot longer than you need it, just so that it's easy to manipulate if it doesn't attach itself to your... And you can make the strip as wide or as narrow as you want. You have a ½ inch to play with. I'm just going to snip off the excess. There we are. Oh, there's embossing powder everywhere. Alright, now I'm going to put more adhesive on the back of this so that we can attach it to the card. I like using my grid paper to get things lined up. Oh, it's not quite long enough. I'll do it right at the top. I like to make sure they're the same distance at the top and the bottom because I'm OCD, as you all know, and there is no hope for me at all. So I'm just going to, actually I'm going to turn around and use my paper cutter. I just have to find my, uh-oh, avalanche. Okay, had an avalanche. I'm just going to take off just a tiny bit at the bottom there. Oh, not enough. Apparently I didn't push hard enough with my blade didn't cut all the way through, of course. Why would it be easy while I'm on video? I have no idea what that was. Oh, a paper clip. Whew. Okay, so now we've got this attached. So here's the original card. Now I'm going to attach Celebrate to the vellum piece. And if I had been smart, I would have had this ready to go, but then I couldn't have put the embossing powder on, so maybe it's a good thing I didn't do it. Just gonna drop some dots of Tombow on here. Oh, I guess I should check and make sure that I'm doing this on camera. Yeah, oh good. Okay, so you want to keep it over to the right hand side so you can put your dots, or over to the left hand side so you can put your dots, or right in the middle if you're not putting dots on at all. And don't forget, when you put Tombow down, don't move it, as you end up with a really mucky mess. There we are. All right, we'll put the enamel dots on. And if you put the top one and the bottom one on, then you can kind of figure out where the other one needs to go. Now this one I'm going to put a little tiny dot of Tombow because I know it's not sticking, and I want it to stick. Okay, and then the one in the middle. Sure, that looks fine. Hey, now to attach this, I'm going to use some dimensionals, but I've kind of kept them underneath the Celebrate so you can't see them. I love these new mini dimensionals just because I like the strips on the outside, because you can cut them to any width you want. So you can make them narrow enough so that they hide behind there. Oops, sticking to me. Come on, cooperate. And one more right there. All right. Let's go and take the liners off. And I'm putting them right into the garbage, if you're wondering where I am, because then I don't have little tiny pieces all over my paper getting stuck to my project. So I've already cut out the U. out of the piece of copper. And it needs to go on there too. We'll just get a couple of more strips because I don't want to put the Celebrate down too far. I want it to be gauged by where the U is. Cut a couple of more strips here. All right. Let's take the liners off. Put the U down where I want it. There we are. Now I know where to put my Celebrate. And apparently I cut this too big. So we're going to have to fix that. And now my dots are not where they're supposed to be. So before you put your dots on, put it on your card. I'll just snip the excess off. And there we go. We got the card. Now for the inside, I'm going to use a stamp from Lovely Wishes. So this is the stamp set, Lovely Wishes. And I'm going to use this image here. And the soft suede ink again because it looks like gold, or as close as gold as we're going to get without embossing the inside. And sometimes I just don't want to emboss the inside. And the envelope. An adhesive on the back. Let's get rid of some of this clutter. Put it inside. Nope. Not centered. That's better. Okay. There we are. There's the second card. It's the Tarnished foil technique. Thanks for joining me, and I'll be back with my third video on creating a card using the Blossoming Basket stamp set basket weave embossing folder and the new Springtime Foil designer paper. Have a great day. Thanks, ladies.